You are different from everyone else. Why is that good? You have spent most of your life carrying a feeling you could never fully explain. A feeling that followed you into every room, every conversation, every relationship. The strange sense that no matter where you are or who you are with, there is always a part of you that remains separate. As if everyone else received some invisible instruction manual for how to exist in this world, and you did not. You learned very early how to hide it. You learned how to smile at the right moment, how to say the right thing, how to act like you belonged, even when something inside you felt deeply disconnected. You became good at making people believe you were just like them. But when you were alone, the feeling returned. You would lie awake at night thinking about things nobody else seemed to think about. Why do I feel everything so deeply? Why do I notice things that other people ignore? Why do ordinary conversations leave me feeling empty? Why do I feel alone even when I am surrounded by people? Most people do not realize how painful it is to feel different in a world that rewards sameness. Because when you feel different for too long, you do not just start to question the world. You start to question yourself. You begin to wonder if there is something wrong with you. Maybe you are too emotional, too sensitive, too intense, too complicated. Maybe you care too much, think too much, feel too much. And after a while, without even realizing it, you begin to slowly turn against yourself. You stop trusting your own feelings. You stop expressing what is really inside you. You stop showing people the deepest parts of who you are, because every time you did in the past you felt misunderstood, judged, ignored, or rejected. So you learn to become smaller. You learn to hide your depth behind silence, to hide your sadness behind humor, to hide your loneliness behind independence. You became the person who says, "I'm fine," even when your mind is exhausted and your heart is carrying more than anyone knows. The truth is, you are probably tired. Not only tired because life has been hard, you are tired because you have spent years trying to be someone you are not. You have spent years trying to fit into places that never felt like home, trying to force yourself to want what everyone else wants, trying to live according to rules, expectations, and definitions that never felt true to you. You watched other people chase attention, status, approval, and superficial happiness, and part of you always felt disconnected from it. You wanted something deeper. You wanted real connection, real meaning, real understanding. But because you could not find it, you began to believe that maybe you were the problem. There is a reason why you feel this way, and it is not because you are broken. Most people spend their entire lives disconnected from themselves. They stay busy, so they do not have to feel. They keep chasing noise, so they never have to sit alone with their own thoughts. They live according to what is expected of them, never asking themselves whether it is actually making them happy. But you were never able to do that. Something inside you has always resisted living on autopilot. You have always felt that there was more beneath the surface, more meaning behind pain, more truth behind appearances, more to life than simply surviving, performing, pretending, and repeating the same empty patterns. That is why ordinary life has often felt unbearable to you. Not because you are weak, because you can feel the emptiness in things that other people call normal. You can feel when a conversation is fake. You can feel when a relationship has no real depth. You can feel when you are betraying yourself just to be accepted. And that awareness has made your life both more painful and more beautiful. More painful, because you cannot ignore what you see. More beautiful, because one day, that same awareness will become your greatest strength. What you are feeling is not random. The loneliness, the confusion, the feeling that you do not belong, the feeling that no one really sees you. All of it is pointing towards something. The truth is, you are not here to become more like everyone else. You are not here to silence the part of you that feels deeply, thinks deeply, and searches for something more. You are here to understand why you have always been different, because the moment you stop seeing your difference as a flaw, you begin to realize something that changes everything. The parts of yourself you have been trying to fix may be the very parts that were meant to guide you. And before you can understand why being different is not a curse but a gift, you need to look at the silent feeling that has been with you your entire life. The silent feeling. You have never been able to explain. There is a feeling that has followed you for so long you may not even remember when it began. You felt it as a child, sitting in a room full of people and somehow feeling invisible. You felt it at school, watching everyone else seem to connect so easily while you stood there wondering why everything felt harder for you. You felt it in friendships, in relationships, even in your own family. No matter how much you tried to belong, there was always a quiet part of you that felt separate. Not better than other people, not worse, just different. And the hardest part is that you could never fully explain why. You did not have the words for it. You only knew that while other people seemed comfortable living on the surface, something inside you kept pulling you deeper. You noticed the sadness in people's eyes when they said they were fine. You felt the tension in a room before anyone said a word. You could sense when someone was pretending, hiding, hurting. Most people don't realize how lonely that can be, because when you feel things deeply in a world that avoids depth, you start to feel like there is no place for you. You begin to wonder why simple things seem so difficult, why small disappointments affect you so much, why you replay conversations in your head for hours, why you cannot stop thinking about things that everyone else forgets so easily. The truth is, you may have spent years believing this feeling meant there was something wrong with you. Maybe you told yourself you were too sensitive, too emotional, too intense, too complicated. But what if that is not the truth? What if the reason you have always felt different is not because you are broken, but because you experience life more consciously than most people do? There is a reason why certain people cannot simply ignore what they feel. There is a reason why some people cannot live only for appearances, distractions, and shallow conversations. You are one of those people. You have always felt that there was something more beneath people's words, more beneath your pain, more beneath the life you have been told you are supposed to want. And because of that, you have spent years carrying a strange contradiction. You crave connection more deeply than most people, yet you often feel more alone than anyone around you. You want to be understood, but you do not know how to explain what is happening inside you. You want to belong, but every time you try to fit in, it feels like you are betraying something real inside yourself. That is why this feeling has been so painful. Not because you are different, because you have been trying to live as if you were not. The silent feeling you have never been able to explain is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is a sign that there is a part of you that has been waiting to be seen, a part of you that is tired of pretending. And once you begin to understand that, you will also begin to understand why you have been so exhausted for so many years. The exhaustion of performing a version of yourself that is not real. You are tired in a way that sleep cannot fix. Not because you have been doing too much, but because you have been pretending for too long. Most people who feel different learn very early that who they really are does not seem to fit the world around them. So they begin to create another version of themselves, a version that is easier to understand, easier to accept, easier to love. You learn to say what people want to hear. You learn to laugh when everyone else laughs, even when you feel empty inside. You learn to hide your intensity, your sensitivity, your questions, your emotions. You become careful. You watch yourself constantly. You think before every word. You wonder if you are too much, too quiet, too emotional, too strange. After a while, you stop asking, "Who am I?" And you start asking, "Who do I need to be so that people will stay?" That is where the exhaustion begins. Because every time you abandon a part of yourself in order to be accepted, your soul feels it. You feel it when you pretend not to care, even though you do. You feel it when you stay silent about what you really think. You feel it when you smile and say you are fine, while something inside you is falling apart. The truth is, you are never exhausted because you are weak. You are exhausted because you have been carrying two people inside you, the person you really are, and the person you believe you have to be. One of them is always trying to speak. The other is always trying to keep everything under control. And the longer you live this way, the more disconnected you become from yourself. This is why so many people who appear calm, strong, independent, or fine, secretly feel numb, empty, and lost. They have spent so much time performing that they no longer know what is real. Most people do not realize that one of the loneliest feelings in the world is being loved for a version of yourself that does not actually exist. People think they know you, but they only know the version of you that learned how to survive. They know the person who does not ask for too much, the person who keeps everything inside, the person who is always understanding, always available, always strong. But they do not know how much you hide. They do not know how deeply you feel. They do not know how much of yourself you have sacrificed just to avoid being rejected. There is a reason why, even when people love you, part of you still feels unseen, because they cannot love the parts of you that you never allow them to see. And maybe the reason you have felt so disconnected is not because no one understands you. Maybe it is because you have spent your whole life hiding the person who most needs to be understood. The version of you that is tired of pretending. The version of you that no longer wants to live according to what other people expect. The version of you that is beginning to realize that fitting in has cost you too much. Because there comes a moment in every person's life when pretending becomes more painful than being rejected. And when that moment arrives, something inside you begins to change. You stop asking how to become more acceptable, and you begin to ask a much more dangerous question. What if the real problem was never who I am, but the fact that I have been hiding it? Why you always felt too deep for the world around you? For most of your life, you may have believed that you feel too much sadness, too much anxiety, too much attachment, too much disappointment. You may have spent years wishing you could become colder, simpler, less affected by everything. You look at other people and wonder how they move through life so easily, how they let things go so quickly, how they stay in relationships that have no real depth, how they spend their days distracted, entertained, busy, never stopping long enough to ask themselves what they truly feel. And part of you has always wanted to be more like them, because it seems easier. It seems easier not to notice the change in someone's voice, easier not to feel the sadness behind a smile, easier not to replay a conversation 100 times, searching for what was left unsaid. But the truth is, you do not suffer because you feel too much. You suffer because you live in a world that teaches people to feel as little as possible. Most people are rewarded for being disconnected. They are taught to hide their emotions, ignore their intuition, stay busy, stay distracted, stay numb. They learn to call that strength. But you were never able to do that. Something inside you has always refused to accept a life lived only on the surface. You notice things that other people ignore. You notice when someone is pretending to be happy. You notice when a room feels heavy, even if no one says a word. You notice when people are lying to themselves. And maybe most painfully, you notice when you are lying to yourself. That is why life has always felt heavier for you. Not because you are weak, because you are aware. The truth is, some people were born with a deeper emotional sensitivity. They experience life with more intensity. They absorb more. They think more. They feel more. And if nobody teaches them how to understand that sensitivity, they grow up believing it is a flaw. So they spend years trying to silence it. They try to become less emotional, less intense, less affected. But every time they do, they move further away from who they really are. There is a reason why you have never been able to fully fit into shallow conversations, fake relationships, or empty routines. Your soul has always wanted something real. You do not just want people to ask how you are. You want them to truly want to know. You do not just want to be around people. You want to feel connected. You do not just want a life that looks good from the outside. You want a life that feels real from the inside. That is why ordinary things have never been enough for you. You are not made for a life without meaning. You are not made to ignore your emotions, your intuition, your depth, and the part of you that has always felt too much may actually be the most honest part of you. Because while other people learned how to disconnect from themselves, you never fully could. Even when you tried, even when it hurt, even when you wished you could stop feeling so much, you still kept searching for something deeper. And maybe that is not your weakness. Maybe that is your gift. Because the people who feel the deepest are often the people who eventually understand life the most. But before you can see your depth as a strength, you need to understand why you never truly felt like you belonged in the first place. The real reason you never felt like you belonged. You have spent so much of your life trying to belong that you may have never stopped to ask yourself a different question. What if you never felt like you belonged because you were trying to belong in places that were never meant for you? Most people grow up learning that acceptance is something they have to earn. They learn that if they say the right things, hide the right parts of themselves, become more useful, more agreeable, more attractive, more successful, then maybe they will finally feel loved. So you learned to adapt. You became who people needed you to be. You became the version of yourself that created the least conflict, the version that did not ask for too much, the version that smiled, agreed, stayed quiet, and carried everything alone. And because of that, people accepted you. But they accepted the version of you that abandoned itself. That is why even when you were surrounded by people, part of you still felt alone. Because you were trying to find belonging in places where you could not be fully yourself. You may have felt it in your family. Maybe you learned very early that certain emotions were not welcome. Maybe you learned that being sensitive made you too dramatic, that asking deep questions made you too serious, that speaking honestly made you too much, so you stopped. You began to hide the parts of yourself that made other people uncomfortable. Then you carried that same pattern into every part of your life, into your friendships, into your relationships, into your work. You kept searching for people who would finally make you feel understood, while at the same time hiding the very parts of yourself that needed to be understood the most. The truth is, you cannot feel like you belong in a place where you have to betray yourself in order to stay. And maybe that is why you have always felt disconnected, not because there is something wrong with you, because there is something inside you that knows you were never meant to live a life built on pretending. There is a reason why certain environments have always drained you. Certain conversations, certain people, certain expectations. Your soul knows when something is not aligned with who you really are, even if your mind tries to ignore it. That strange feeling of discomfort you carry is not always anxiety. Sometimes it is the pain of being in a life that no longer fits you. You have spent years blaming yourself for not fitting in. But maybe you were never meant to fit in. Maybe you were meant to find the places, the people, and the life where you no longer have to shrink yourself to be accepted. Because true belonging does not happen when people love the version of you that performs. It happens when you stop performing. And that is terrifying. Because the moment you stop pretending, you risk being misunderstood, rejected, judged. But you also give yourself the chance to experience something you may have been searching for your entire life. The chance to be seen. And once you realize that you do not belong everywhere, you begin to understand something even deeper. How much of yourself you have lost trying to become like everyone else. The hidden cost of trying to be like everyone else. You may not realize it, but one of the deepest wounds you carry did not come from other people. It came from the moment you began believing that who you are is not enough. That wound does not appear all at once. It begins quietly. It begins the first time you notice that people seem more comfortable with you when you are quieter, easier, less emotional, less real. It begins when you realize that certain parts of you get accepted, while other parts get ignored, criticized, or rejected. So you make a decision without even knowing it. You decide to become someone else. Not completely, just enough to survive. You keep the parts of yourself that make people comfortable, and you slowly hide the parts that do not. You hide your sensitivity. You hide your sadness. You hide your intensity, your thoughts, your truth. You become the version of yourself that feels more acceptable. And at first, it seems to work. People like you more. They approve of you. They stay. But something inside you begins to disappear. Because every time you reject a part of yourself, you teach yourself that love has to be earned by becoming less of who you are. The truth is, the pain of feeling different is not what destroys most people. What destroys them is spending years at war with themselves, trying to become colder when they are meant to feel deeply. trying to become simpler when they are meant to think deeply, trying to become like everyone else even though something inside them has always known they never will be. Most people do not realize how much energy it takes to constantly compare yourself to others, to watch how they speak, how they act, how they live, and quietly ask yourself why you cannot be more like them. Why can they move on so easily? Why do they seem so confident? Why do they fit in so naturally? And little by little, comparison turns into self-rejection. You stop seeing your sensitivity as a gift. You stop seeing your depth as something beautiful. You stop seeing yourself clearly at all. You only see what you are not. And no matter how much you achieve, no matter how much you improve, no matter how much you try to become better, it is never enough. Because you are trying to solve the wrong problem. You think the problem is that you are different. But the real problem is that you have been taught to see your difference as something shameful. There is a reason why you feel exhausted after spending time with certain people. There is a reason why some relationships leave you feeling empty, even when nothing seems wrong. There is a reason why you can spend years chasing approval and still feel like something is missing. Because no amount of acceptance from other people can heal the pain of abandoning yourself. The truth is, you do not need to become more like everyone else in order to be worthy. You do not need to become easier, quieter, less emotional, less intense. You only think you do because somewhere along the way you learned that being yourself was dangerous. But what if that is the lie that has been keeping you trapped? What if the reason you feel so lost is not because you are not enough, but because you have spent your whole life trying to become someone you were never meant to be? Because the moment you stop trying to become like everyone else, you begin to see something that changes everything. The parts of you that you have been trying to hide may be the very parts that are trying to lead you toward the life that is truly yours. Why the most aware people often feel the most lost. There comes a moment when you begin to see things you can no longer unsee. You begin to notice how many people are pretending, how many relationships are built on convenience instead of connection, how many conversations are only performances. How many people spend their lives chasing things that do not truly make them happy? And once you see it, something changes inside you. The life that once seemed normal no longer feels real. The things that used to distract you no longer work. The places, the people, the routines that once made you feel safe now leave you feeling empty. And that is when you begin to feel lost. Most people think that being more aware should make life easier, but the truth is, awareness often makes life more painful before it makes it more meaningful. Because the moment you stop lying to yourself, you begin to realize how much of your life was built on things that were never truly aligned with who you are. You begin to see the ways you betrayed yourself to be accepted, the ways you ignored your intuition, the ways you stayed in places that were hurting you because you were afraid to let go. And that realization is painful, because there is grief in waking up. Grief for the years you spent trying to become someone else. Grief for the relationships that were never as real as you wanted them to be. Grief for the version of yourself that spent so long begging to be loved. There is a reason why so many deeply aware people go through periods where they feel more alone than ever. It is because they are no longer able to find comfort in illusions. They cannot pretend anymore. They cannot go back to the old version of themselves. But they also do not yet know who they are becoming. They are standing between two lives, the life they have outgrown, and the life they have not yet found. That space is where most people give up, because it feels confusing, it feels empty, it feels like nothing makes sense anymore. But what if feeling lost is not a sign that you are failing? What if it is a sign that you are becoming too aware to keep living a life that no longer belongs to you? The truth is, some people spend their entire lives asleep. They follow the path that was given to them. They do what is expected. They never ask themselves whether they are truly happy, truly connected, truly alive. But you were never able to do that. Something inside you has always wanted more. Not more success, not more attention, not more approval, more truth, more meaning, more depth. And because of that, you are being forced to leave behind everything that is false, even if it hurts, even if it means losing people, even if it means feeling alone for a while. Because the person you are becoming cannot be built on a life that was created just to keep other people comfortable. You are not lost because there is no path. You are lost because you are no longer willing to follow a path that is not yours. And the reason this feels so painful is because there is still a part of you that believes you should already have all the answers. You think you should know exactly who you are, exactly where you are going, exactly what your life is supposed to look like. But transformation does not happen that way. First, everything false begins to fall apart. Then, slowly, the truth begins to appear. And before you can understand who you are becoming, you need to understand something even deeper. The parts of yourself that you hate, fear, or want to escape may not actually be your enemies. They may be the parts of you that have been trying to protect you all along. The part of you that has been trying to protect you. There are parts of yourself that you have spent years fighting. The overthinking, the anxiety, the fear of being rejected, the need to keep people happy, the habit of hiding your emotions until you are alone, the feeling that you always have to be strong, careful, in control. You may see these parts of yourself as weaknesses. You may believe they are the reason you suffer. But what if the truth is very different? What if these parts of you were never trying to hurt you? What if they were trying to protect you? Most people do not realize that the behaviors they hate the most about themselves usually began as survival. You did not start overthinking because you are broken. You learned to overthink because at some point in your life it felt safer to prepare for every possible outcome than to be caught off guard again. You learned to replay conversations in your mind because you became afraid of saying the wrong thing. You learned to notice every small change in someone's tone, mood, or behavior because somewhere in the past, you learned that love could disappear without warning. You did not become a people pleaser because you are weak. You became one because you learned that being accepted was safer than being yourself. You learned to keep everyone happy because maybe, when you were younger, conflict felt dangerous. Rejection felt unbearable. Being misunderstood felt like proof that there was something wrong with you. So you adapted. You became who you needed to be in order to survive. You became the person who keeps the peace. The person who never asks for too much. The person who gives, understands, forgives, waits. But the truth is, the version of you that was created to survive is not always the version of you that can truly live. Because survival asks you to stay small, to stay quiet, to stay hidden. And maybe that helped you once. Maybe those parts of you protected you when you had no other choice. But what protected you in the past may be hurting you now. The walls that once kept you safe may now be the reason you feel alone. The overthinking that once helped you avoid pain may now be the reason you cannot find peace. The fear of being rejected may now be the reason you keep abandoning yourself. There is a reason why you feel so exhausted. You are trying to become the person you are meant to be while still carrying the survival patterns of the person you had to be. And those two versions of you are fighting each other every day. One part of you wants to open up, trust, speak honestly, stop pretending. The other part says, be careful, stay quiet. Do not let anyone see too much. One part of you wants to believe that you are enough. The other part still believes that you have to earn love by being useful, perfect, easy, or needed. That is why healing is so difficult. Because healing is not just about changing your behavior. It is about understanding why that behavior exists. You cannot heal the parts of yourself that you keep judging. You cannot find peace while treating your pain like an enemy. The truth is, the anxious part of you is not trying to ruin your life. It is trying to protect your heart. The part of you that is afraid of being abandoned is not weak. It is carrying old wounds that were never given the chance to heal. The part of you that keeps hiding is not the problem. It is simply tired of being hurt. And maybe the first step is not learning how to fight those parts of yourself. Maybe the first step is learning how to sit with them, to understand them, to say, I know why you are here. I know what you were trying to do for me. But I do not need to live this way anymore. Because the moment you stop seeing yourself as the enemy, something inside you begins to soften. And when that happens, you begin to notice another painful pattern. You begin to realize that the people you keep attracting into your life often make you feel exactly the way you have always felt about yourself. Why you keep attracting people who do not understand you. You have probably asked yourself this question more than once. Why do I keep attracting people who make me feel unseen? People who listen, but do not really hear you. People who stay, but never fully choose you. People who make you feel like you are always too much, or somehow never enough. At first it seems like bad luck. You tell yourself that maybe you just keep meeting the wrong people. Maybe you are giving too much to people who do not deserve you. Maybe you are simply unlucky in love, friendship, connection. But the truth is often much deeper than that. Most people do not choose what feels healthy. They choose what feels familiar. And if you grew up feeling misunderstood, emotionally alone, or as if you had to earn love, there is a part of you that will unconsciously be drawn to people who recreate that same feeling. Not because you want to suffer, because your nervous system mistakes familiarity for love. If you spent your life trying to be accepted by people who could not fully see you, then being unseen may start to feel normal. If you learned that love means proving yourself, then you may become attracted to people who make you fight for their attention. If you learned that your needs were too much, then you may keep choosing people who give you very little. The truth is, you do not keep attracting people who do not understand you because you are not worthy of being understood. You attract them because there is still a part of you that believes this is all you deserve. A part of you that still thinks love must be earned, that if you are patient enough, good enough, understanding enough, one day they will finally see you. But most of the time, they do not. And the deepest pain is not that they fail to understand you. It is that you keep abandoning yourself in the hope that they eventually will. You silence your feelings to keep them comfortable. You explain yourself again and again. You accept less than you need. You become smaller, softer, easier to ignore, and then somewhere deep inside, you begin to feel that old loneliness all over again. The loneliness of not being met. The loneliness of giving everything and still feeling invisible. There is a reason why this pattern keeps repeating. Because every relationship is not only a connection with another person, it is also a reflection of the relationship you have with yourself. If there is a part of you that still believes you are too much, you will keep choosing people who make you feel that way. If there is a part of you that still believes you have to earn love, you will keep choosing people who make you work for it. If there is a part of you that still does not fully value your own depth, your own sensitivity, your own needs, you will keep giving your heart to people who do not value them either. The truth is, the people who cannot understand you are not proof that you are unlovable. They are proof that you have outgrown the kind of love that asks you to betray yourself. You are not here to spend your life convincing people to see your worth. You are not here to chase people who only know how to love the version of you that asks for less. You are here to learn something much more difficult. How to stop begging for the kind of love you should have been giving yourself all along. And when you begin to do that, something changes. The people who once felt impossible to let go of no longer feel like home. The life you built around being needed, chosen, accepted no longer feels real. And for a while, that can make you feel more lost than ever. Because there comes a strange moment in every person's life when the old version of who they were no longer fits. The strange moment. When your old life stops feeling like home. There comes a moment that almost nobody talks about. A moment when the life you once knew no longer feels like it belongs to you. Nothing dramatic has happened. From the outside, everything may look the same people, the same routines, the same places, the same conversations. But inside, something has changed. The things that once made you feel safe no longer comfort you. The people you used to run to no longer understand you. The version of yourself you spent years creating suddenly feels unfamiliar. You wake up one day and realize that you can no longer pretend the way you used to. You can no longer force yourself to enjoy things that leave you empty. You can no longer stay in relationships where you feel unseen. You can no longer live only to be accepted. And that realization is terrifying. Because for most of your life, even if it hurt, at least it was familiar. You knew who you were supposed to be. You knew how to survive. You knew how to stay small, quiet, useful, easy to love. But now something inside you is refusing to go back, even if you do not fully understand why. This is the moment where many people think they are losing themselves. But the truth is, You are not losing yourself. You are losing the version of yourself that was built out of fear, the version that was created to survive, the version that learned to hide, adapt, please, perform. And when that version begins to fall apart, it feels like everything inside you is breaking. You feel confused, restless, disconnected. You wonder why nothing feels right anymore. Why you suddenly want distance from people you once needed. Why your old dreams no longer excite you. Why the life you worked so hard to build now feels like a place you no longer belong. There is a reason for that. You are standing between two identities. The person you have been, and the person you are becoming. The old version of you is still there, trying to pull you back toward what is familiar. It tells you to stay where you are, to stop changing, to stop asking questions, to go back to the life that other people understand. But another part of you has already seen too much. It has seen what happens when you betray yourself for too long. It has seen how lonely it feels to live a life that does not reflect who you truly are. And now, even if you are afraid, you cannot unsee it. Most people do not realize that this stage of transformation often feels like grief, because you are not only leaving behind people, habits, or dreams. You are grieving the person you thought you had to be in order to be loved. You are grieving the life you spent so long trying to make work. You are grieving the hope that if you just tried harder, sacrificed more, became less of yourself, one day you would finally feel enough. But you never did, because you were never meant to find peace by becoming someone else. The truth is, the reason your old life no longer feels like home is because you are no longer the person who created it. You are becoming someone who wants more than survival, more than approval, more than pretending. You want truth, you want depth, you want a life that feels real. And that means you cannot keep carrying the belief that there is something wrong with you. Because the next step in your healing begins when you realize that your difference was never something that needed to be fixed. Why your difference was never meant to be fixed. For most of your life, you have probably looked at the parts of yourself that make you different and treated them like problems. Your sensitivity, your depth, your tendency to overthink, your need for meaning, the way you notice everything, feel everything, question everything. You may have spent years trying to change those parts of yourself, trying to become easier, less emotional, less intense, less affected by the world. Because somewhere along the way, you learned that being different meant being difficult to love. So you began to believe that if you could just fix yourself, everything would finally get easier. People would understand you. You would feel less alone. You would finally belong. But the truth is, you have been trying to fix the wrong thing. The part of you that feels deeply is not the problem. The part of you that wants something real is not the problem. The part of you that has never been able to settle for a life without meaning is not the problem. Those parts are not signs that there is something wrong with you. They are signs that there is something true about you. You were never meant to move through life asleep. You were never meant to ignore your intuition, silence your emotions, or accept a life that does not feel real. You were meant to notice, to question, to feel, to see what other people cannot see. And yes, that makes life harder sometimes, because awareness comes with pain. You notice when someone is lying. You notice when a relationship is empty. You notice when you are pretending to be okay. You notice when you are betraying yourself. But that same awareness is also the reason you are capable of creating a life that is deeper, more honest, more meaningful than most people ever experience. Most people spend their lives running away from themselves. You have spent your life trying to understand yourself. That is not weakness. That is courage. There is a reason why you have never been able to fully fit into the life that other people expected you to want. Because your soul has always wanted something different. Not more attention, not more success, not more approval, something real. And the reason you have suffered so much is because you kept trying to become the kind of person who could live without that. But you cannot. Because you are not that person. You are not meant to live disconnected from your heart, just because it would make other people more comfortable. You are not meant to make yourself smaller so that you can fit into places that were never meant for you. You are not meant to spend your life apologizing for the very things that make you who you are. The truth is, the parts of yourself you have been trying to fix are often the parts that carry your greatest gifts. Your sensitivity is what allows you to understand people deeply. Your loneliness is what forced you to discover who you really are. Your overthinking is often your mind searching for truth in a world full of distractions. Your emotional depth is what gives you the ability to love, create, connect, and heal in ways that other people cannot. You do not need to become someone else in order to be worthy. You do not need to remove the deepest parts of yourself in order to be accepted. You only need to stop seeing them as something shameful. Because the moment you stop trying to fix yourself, you begin to understand something that changes everything. Maybe you were never broken. Maybe you were simply becoming the kind of person that this world does not always know how to understand. And maybe the pain you have carried all this time was never proof that there was something wrong with you. Maybe it was proof that you were becoming someone different, someone deeper, someone more awake. And when you finally stop fighting who you are, you begin to see your past in a completely different way. You begin to understand that even your pain had a purpose. The truth about why pain changed you so much. There is a version of you that existed before the pain, a version that believed people meant what they said, a version that wanted to trust easily, love openly, belong completely, a version that thought if you were kind enough, patient enough, good enough, life would eventually give you the same love you gave to others. But life changed you. The disappointments, the heartbreak, the loneliness, the moments when you needed someone and nobody came, the moments when you tried to explain what you were feeling and no one understood, the moments when you gave everything you had only to realize it still was not enough. Those experiences did not just hurt you, they transformed you. The truth is, pain changes people because pain forces them to see what they can no longer ignore. It forces you to see who is really there for you. It forces you to see the places where you have been betraying yourself. It forces you to see how much of your life has been built around trying to earn love, prove your worth, or become someone you are not. That is why pain often feels like the end of who you used to be. Because in many ways, it is. There are some illusions you can only lose once. The illusion that everyone will understand you. The illusion that being good guarantees you will be loved. The illusion that if you keep sacrificing yourself, eventually someone will choose you. Pain takes those illusions away. And when it does, you feel empty, angry, confused. You wonder why life had to make you this way. Why you had to become so serious, so careful, so different from who you used to be. But what if the pain did not only take things away from you? What if it also gave you something, because even though pain made you more cautious, it also made you wiser. It made you more aware of what is real and what is not. It made you less willing to settle for fake love, fake happiness, fake connection. It taught you how to sit alone with yourself. It taught you how to survive things you once thought would destroy you. It taught you that you are stronger than you ever believed. Most people spend their lives avoiding pain. They distract themselves. They numb themselves. They run from anything that forces them to feel. But you could not do that. You felt everything. And because you felt everything, you changed. Your loneliness made you introspective. Your heartbreak made you compassionate. Your confusion made you search for meaning. Your suffering forced you to look deeper. There is a reason why some of the most beautiful, wise, and emotionally powerful people are also the people who have suffered the most. Because pain has a way of breaking open the parts of you that were asleep. It strips away what is false. It shows you what really matters. And even though you may still carry scars, you are not the same person you were before. You understand things now that you never understood before. You can see pain in other people's eyes. You can feel when someone is pretending. You can recognize loneliness even when it is hidden behind a smile. You became the kind of person who understands suffering because you have lived through it. And maybe that is not something to be ashamed of. Maybe that is part of your purpose. Because one day the pain that once made you feel broken may become the reason someone else finally feels understood. But before that can happen, there is one more thing you must learn. You must stop fighting yourself. What happens? The moment you stop fighting yourself. You have spent so many years trying to become someone else that you may not even realize how much energy it has taken from you. The energy of hiding, the energy of pretending, the energy of trying to be less emotional, less intense, less affected, less yourself. You have spent so long treating parts of yourself like enemies, your sensitivity, your need for depth, your loneliness, your sadness, your fear. You thought that if you could just get rid of those parts, you would finally feel okay. But no matter how hard you tried, they never disappeared, because they were never the enemy. The truth is, the pain you carry does not only come from what happened to you. It also comes from the war you have been fighting against yourself. The war between who you are and who you think you should be. The war between the part of you that wants to be real and the part of you that is terrified of being rejected. You want to speak honestly, but you stay quiet. You want to stop pretending, but you keep performing. You want to be seen, but you keep hiding. And little by little, that conflict becomes exhausting, because there is no peace in living against your own nature. There is a reason why you feel so tired. You are carrying the weight of trying to reject yourself every single day. But something changes the moment you stop. The moment you stop looking at yourself as a problem that needs to be fixed. The moment you stop apologizing for feeling deeply. The moment you stop asking, "What is wrong with me?" and begin asking, "What if there was never anything wrong with me at all?" At first it feels strange. You are so used to judging yourself that compassion feels unfamiliar. You are so used to criticizing yourself that understanding yourself feels uncomfortable. But slowly, something inside you begins to soften. You stop forcing yourself to stay in places that make you feel small. You stop chasing people who only love the version of you that asks for less. You stop pretending to be okay when you are not. You stop abandoning yourself in order to keep other people comfortable. And for the first time, you begin to feel something you may have been searching for your entire life. Relief. Not because your life suddenly becomes perfect. Not because everyone understands you. Not because all your pain disappears, but because you are no longer creating more pain by turning against yourself. The truth is, healing does not begin when the world finally accepts you. Healing begins when you stop waiting for permission to accept yourself. When you stop asking other people to tell you who you are worth being. When you stop needing everyone to understand you in order to believe that you are real. You do not need to explain every part of yourself to people who only know how to see the surface. You do not need to keep proving your worth. You do not need to keep shrinking. You have spent your whole life carrying the belief that if you were different, you would finally be loved. But maybe the opposite is true. Maybe the moment you stop trying to be different is the moment you finally begin to love yourself. And when that happens, your whole life begins to change. Because your difference is no longer something you are ashamed of. It becomes something you protect, something you honor, something you finally understand. And once you stop fighting who you are, you begin to see that your difference was never only meant to heal you. It was meant to help you create an entirely different life. Your difference is the reason you are meant to create a different life. For so long you believed that your difference was the reason life felt so difficult. You believed it was the reason you felt alone. The reason you struggled to fit in. The reason you never seemed to want the same things as everyone else. But what if your difference is not the obstacle? What if it is the direction? Because the truth is, you were never meant to build the same life that other people build. You were never meant to live only for appearances, approval, routine, and comfort. You were never meant to spend your life pretending to be happy, while something inside you slowly disappears. That is why the life that satisfies other people has never satisfied you. You do not just want a job. You want purpose. You do not just want relationships. You want connection. You do not just want to survive. You want to feel alive. And there is nothing wrong with that. The reason you have always felt different is because you are meant to create a different kind of life. A life where you no longer betray yourself to be accepted. A life where you stop choosing what is familiar and start choosing what is true. A life where you are no longer guided by fear, but by the deepest part of who you are. Most people spend their whole lives following paths that were given to them. They follow what is expected. They choose what is safe. They stay in places that no longer feel right because they are afraid of disappointing other people. But you cannot do that anymore. You have already felt what it is like to live disconnected from yourself. You have already felt the emptiness of trying to become someone you are not. And now, even if you do not know exactly what comes next, something inside you knows that you cannot go back, because your difference is asking something of you. It is asking you to stop settling, to stop shrinking, to stop building your life around the fear of being misunderstood. It is asking you to trust that the things that make you different are also the things that will guide you toward the people, the places, and the life that truly belong to you. Your sensitivity is not here to make your life harder. It is here to help you recognize what is real. Your loneliness was never meant to convince you that you are unlovable. It was meant to show you that you can no longer survive on shallow connection. Your pain was not meant to destroy you. It was meant to wake you up. There is a reason why you have always wanted more. More truth, more meaning, more depth. Because your soul has always known that you were meant for more than simply fitting in. You were meant to create a life that reflects who you really are. A life where you no longer have to hide the deepest parts of yourself. A life where you stop asking, how can I become what other people want? And begin asking, what would happen if I became fully myself? That is the question that changes everything. Because the moment you stop seeing your difference as something that separates you from the world, you begin to see that it is actually the thing that is leading you toward the life you were always meant to live. And once you understand that, there is only one question left. The day you stop asking, why am I different? One day, without even realizing when it happened, you will stop asking the question that has followed you your entire life. Why am I different? You will stop asking it with pain. You will stop asking it with shame. You will stop asking it as if there is something wrong with you. Because one day you will finally understand. You were never different in the way you believed. You were never too much, too emotional, too sensitive, too complicated. You were simply carrying a depth that the world did not always know how to understand. And because of that, you spent years trying to become someone else. You tried to make yourself smaller, quieter, easier. You tried to silence the parts of yourself that felt too intense, too honest, too real. But no matter how hard you tried, something inside you never let you become that person. Because the deepest part of you always knew. It knew that you were not meant to spend your life pretending. It knew that you were not meant to stay in places that made you feel invisible. It knew that you were not meant to trade your truth for acceptance. The truth is, everything you have been through was leading you here. The loneliness, the confusion, the heartbreak, the feeling of not belonging, the pain of being misunderstood, none of it was meaningless. It was all teaching you something. It was teaching you that you cannot build a real life by abandoning yourself. It was teaching you that the more you tried to become like everyone else, the more disconnected you became from who you really are. And it was teaching you that your difference is not the reason you have suffered. Your difference is the reason you can no longer accept a life that is false. One day, you will stop asking, why am I different? And you will begin asking a different question. What am I meant to do with this difference? That is the moment your life begins. Because your sensitivity is not here to make you weak. It is here to make you aware. Your depth is not here to isolate you. It is here to guide you toward what is real. Your pain is not here to destroy you. It is here to transform you. You are not here to spend your life waiting for the world to understand you. You are here to understand yourself. To stop apologizing for who you are, to stop hiding, to stop shrinking, to stop asking for permission to exist exactly as you are. There are people in this world who will understand you. There are places where you will no longer have to pretend. There is a life where you do not have to betray yourself in order to belong. But you will not find that life by becoming less of yourself. You will find it the moment you become more honest, more open, more real. Because the parts of you that you have spent your whole life trying to fix may be the very parts that were always meant to guide you. You were never broken. You were becoming. And maybe this is the moment you stop running from who you are. Maybe this is the moment you stop asking why you are different and start becoming the person you were always meant to be.